I spoke to Stuart Robert earlier in the program, Michael Kroger, and I asked him about the small target approach of Albanese, and he was clearly saying it's hard to land a blow on because in Stuart Robert's terms, he's not small target, he's zero target. Regardless, it's hard for the government to land a blow on him.
Well, mate, that's absolutely right. And he stuck to the script yesterday, as I've been saying for months. As you know, he's the night watchman. He's at number 11. He's not going to give the electorate, Kieran, any reason to vote against him. Shorten did, as we know, the tax increases allowed, the government to exploit what would have been a massive tax hike. We saw the consequences with the late swing back to the Morrison government, the government being re-elected. So Albo's dumped all of those. Albo has a policy which is basically, zero policy going forward. He'll have policies here and there, no big targets. This contravenes the Troy Bramston theory, by the way, which was Troy's theory, which is a very good theory, which is for Labor to get elected, it has to have a grand narrative historically. You go back to starting in 72 onwards. It wins with a grand narrative, 83, and a less grand narrative, but a narrative in any sense in 2007. Albanese has a zero narrative policy. But don't forget, people vote against governments. I don't know how many times we have to say this. They're not voting for Albo. They're voting against the Morrison government because we're going for a fourth term. That's why Albanese is adopting absolutely the correct strategy. Say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. Do not scare the horses. What he's got to do is not scare the horses, and that's exactly what he's doing. And when people say to me, they're not going to elect Albo, it's like, well, they're not electing Albo, they're unelecting Scott. And that's what the electorates, that's what they do. They don't elect Albo, but he may well get there, and he's favourite at the minute, no doubt about that at all.
It's interesting, Stephen, and Michael has made that point to us on this discussion regularly on many occasions about that challenge of getting a fourth term. It is a benchmark. It is a difficult benchmark to overcome for a whole heap of reasons, not the least of which the Prime Minister's been there now 3 years, and the Labor advertising and whatever else, the attacks on him, he's got more to work with.
Oh, absolutely. And look, it's important to understand that it does reach a point in politics when your ability to cut through and get a message across diminishes. And what we saw before Christmas was the government decided to try and run a scare campaign on Labor's big, bold climate change policy around 2030, and it fell flat. I mean, they haven't mentioned it since Christmas. They threw out a few punches, they missed their target, and they retreated. So there does reach a point where Josh Frydenberg will just be saying the same old tired claims that he's made the last election, and the Liberals made the election before that. And there reaches a point where people they don't swallow it anymore. It's like white noise. Yeah, you expect them to say that. And it's possible, given the sort of polling we're seeing, but let's never forget they were this far behind about this point in time before the last election. But it does seem that their key salespeople aren't able to cut through. And that is a big advantage for Albo. People will be interested in what he's got to say, and the front bench and Jim Chalmers have got to say. They sort of know what Morrison and Frydenberg are going to say, and they're just not buying it like they were 3 years ago.